Welcome to the Michigan post game reaction show. Not quite as live post game as we usually do. I wasn't home, so what are you gonna do? Can't do a video when you're not home. All right, can you get out of here? But Michigan obviously beat Wisconsin by 3 scores, 38-17, in a game that was pretty weird because it seemed like Michigan had the advantage for most of the game, and then Wisconsin fought back, probably creating a little bit of a scare. And then the second half was just all Michigan all the way. So before we get into the game, I am Ryan from the Sports Carnage podcast. We just dropped a new episode yesterday, which is on our Facebook page. Our link is in the description right here. So go check that out. But you can find us on Spotify, on Podbean, on Apple Podcasts, wherever you guys end up listening. You can find our Sports Carnage podcast there. And like I said, new one, fresh, hot off the presses yesterday, where we actually discussed the Michigan game, as well as the upcoming Michigan State, the Lions games, things like that. So to get back into the Michigan game, the big question coming in was obviously what's going to happen when their run game gets shut down. Would this be the game that finally happened, where Michigan would have to win through the air? And you could say yes. Michigan obviously looked better passing the ball today. Even if Cade McNamara missed some throws, for the most part, he played pretty well overall. He was a little helped by receivers a little bit. Like the Roman Wilson had that big 38-yard play that set up a touchdown. But, you get those in every game, so it's obviously not something to knock the quarterback for. And even the rushing game, if you looked at the numbers, it looks pretty ugly. They only had 2.5 yards a carry. But Michigan was 4-5 on fourth down, and I believe 3 of those fourth downs came with the rush. So, when they needed to run, they were able to pick up what they needed and kind of keep some of those drives going. So, like I said, the raw numbers look ugly, but I thought just watching the game, they didn't impose their will on the ground, but the running game was still a big part of the offense and helping keep these drives moving that could eventually end in points, end in touchdowns. The one field goal that they had, or 2 field goals, because Moody hit a 48-yarder, and then he hit the one that was really short after Wisconsin fumbled it. 3 field goals. Oh, it's because Michigan had a 2-point conversion, so my thought process was a little off. But in all, I thought the run game, when they needed to, was able to help Michigan out big time. Wisconsin has no quarterback. Yeah, Wisconsin's they look like they're a really bad football team. Michigan was an underdog going into this game, and obviously give them credit for winning. Going to Madison, even against a bad Wisconsin team, is certainly no easy feat. And Michigan did a good job early of taking the crowd out of the game. They got into it again right before halftime, when Wisconsin was able to put up some points on the board. But then again, Michigan came out right in the second half and started imposing their will. The Graham Mertz went out, and then Wisconsin started to turn the ball over a little bit, which obviously does not help does not help your comeback efforts. And Michigan was able to just really run away with it from there. He went to Notre Dame. What's the score? 17-7. Cincinnati's beating Notre Dame right now. They won because they dominated. Yeah, they dominated the game again, really from start to finish. Outside of that stretch right at the end of the first half, where Wisconsin, I think they completed their longest run of the day, and then two big pass plays to able to get that touchdown right before halftime to make it 13-10. But then Michigan scores 25 in the second half. Again, they knocked out Graham Mertz, but they didn't knock him out on a dirty play. It wasn't some weird non-contact thing. It was really good hit. So, kind of take that for what you will. Michigan did a good job really all day playing on defense, and then they were able to capitalize on Wisconsin's mistakes for the most part on offense. You probably wish they would have got the touchdown when Wisconsin muffed the punt there in the first half, and instead settled for a field goal. But other than that, when they were given short fields, they were able to punch him in. They scored 4 touchdowns today, 3 through the air. McCarthy's only pass was a touchdown, and they did some weird things on offense where they were subbing in McCarthy at first just to hand the ball off, and they obviously had him in on like that QB sneak touchdown, and then they had him in for another running play as well. So I know there are a couple questions about that. I think they just want to, give the defense something more to think about because McCarthy's a better athlete than Cade is. So if you have McCarthy there, you have to worry, more about the quarterback run than you do if Cade's under center. And I do think I do think it's smart to bring that in because we haven't really seen that all year, and then for them to introduce it in like the second half of this game where the game was still close. My guess would be it probably totally threw Wisconsin off their game, even if McCarthy was just turning around and handing the ball off. It just kind of plants the seed that there's something different. Why is this guy in the game? And then Cade comes back in, so it's not a permanent switch. And as much as I think it confused some of the fans that were watching, I think it confused the Wisconsin defense as well. And Michigan was able to use that to their advantage. Michigan shouldn't have been an underdog. You're absolutely right. Wisconsin's pretty bad, and Michigan shouldn't have been an underdog, but they were. To be honest, the D dominated, and we made enough plays on offense. We missed a few, but it didn't matter. Yeah, and that's why I said at the top, I don't think Cade played great, but he played good enough to get the win. And you're not going to need him to play great most games to win. And again, he didn't play bad. He played fine. He was obviously good enough to get the win, and he made some nice throws too, like that flea flicker on Michigan's. This is their first touchdown of the game. A really nice throw on the flea flicker. The play to Wilson that set up the touchdown, it is probably a better throw if he doesn't get hit and he's not getting pressured. So it was underthrown, but the ball was still caught, and none of Cade's mistakes really hurt Michigan too much. There was the one where the tight end was crossing, but then if you were on Twitter after, you saw a bunch of people saying that because the defense was playing zone, the tight end should have sat. Where in real time it obviously looked like Cade threw the ball behind him. So there were a couple mistakes that he made, a couple throws that were short that he missed, but nothing really egregious. And with the running game like Michigan has, as long as you're not making some bonehead mistakes at quarterback, you're going to be pretty fine in most games. 38 points against a stellar D isn't making enough plays. They obviously scored 38, and you're gonna give them credit for getting all the touchdowns. But the defense, helped them out with some short fields. But the offense played good. The offense didn't play bad by any means, and I don't think anybody on Michigan really played bad. There are obviously a couple people that played really well. Roman Wilson. Not only did he have that 138-yard catch, but he had 6 catches for 81 yards. By far the most catches out of anybody on the Michigan team. Nobody else had more than 3. So Roman really imposed his or stepped up as the alpha receiver at least today for Michigan. And that was probably another question. Who's going to be the guy that steps up with Ronnie Bell out? And at least for today, it was Roman Wilson. Rest of the season, that's kind of to be determined. But he's the leader in the clubhouse now, you would say. And then Daxton Hill played really well on defense too. He had obviously he had the hit that knocked Mertz out. He had the interception from Wisconsin's backup. But other than that, he just seemed like he was making plays all over the place, and he was all over the field. And it was a really good game from him, I thought. JJ's next year's starter, and I like that he's getting meaningful reps now. He started slow, but was really good most of his time. JJ probably is next year's starter. He got meaningful reps. I don't know how much you can take from them, though. He obviously had the touchdown. But that was just a quarterback sneak, and he had the one pass that ended up being a touchdown, and obviously you like to see that. But that was when the game was out of reach. I think it was 31. I think it was 31-10 by that point on McCarthy's touchdown pass, which made it 38-10. So he is next year's starter, and it's better that you get game reps than not. I just don't know how much of these reps mean something. Johnson as well. So I'm gonna drop. Let me see. Oh yeah, Cornelius Johnson. Yeah, I mean 2 touchdowns, 2 catches for Mr. Johnson there. So pretty efficient game from him. But I mean, all in all, it was Michigan's, I think, their most impressive game of the season. You're probably still gonna hear that like they didn't play anybody right. But I mean, you only play who's in front of you, and it's not Michigan's fault that Wisconsin doesn't look like a very good football team. So you've played who's in front of you, and you beat who's in front of you. And again, to their credit, it's not necessarily like they're squeaking by these teams. Last week against Rutgers was a bit of a scare. But the 2 teams where everyone thought they'd at least be pretty good in Washington and Wisconsin, Michigan blew them both out. And that's better than getting a bunch of close wins against teams, kind of regardless of how good they are or not. And next week Michigan has Nebraska, and you wouldn't anticipate them having any troubles with that game. But I guess we've seen in the last 2 weeks. I'm not sure exactly what Nebraska's doing today, but they lost to Oklahoma by a touchdown, and then they probably should have beat Michigan State last week in Spartan Stadium. So Nebraska might be a little bit better than they were given credit for at the beginning of the year after losing to Illinois. And then the win against Western Michigan, I'm pretty sure Western Michigan was able to get another win today. But I mean, that win's looking better than a usual Western Michigan win. I'll say that. They beat Pittsburgh. Today they went on the road and beat Buffalo, and not that Pitt or Buffalo are great teams, but both of those for Western Michigan were road wins. So I think as the season goes along, Western Michigan is a team that could win the MAC. And then if you're looking back on the season, again, a win against Western Michigan will always only get you so far. But it's better to beat the MAC champions than it is the bottom tier of the MAC schools. And that is what Western Michigan is looking like. So, with Michigan, again, just the rest of the year, kind of take it one game at a time. And I don't know, because I'm not a Michigan fan, so I don't really know how the fan base is feeling about like the how far ahead they're projecting. Are they starting to talk about Big Ten titles? I mean, you guys tell me, what were your conversations with your Michigan friends after this game? Were they starting to talk about, potential Big Ten titles? Were they starting to look ahead and, we can be 6-0, 7-0, 8-0? They could be 7-0, probably should be 7-0 on October 30th when they play Michigan State. And then they obviously play Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State the last month and a half. Last month of the season, really. And I'm sure that will determine how their season goes way more than any of these first 5 games had. But, if you're a Michigan fan, I think you got to be encouraged by the way that they came in today and just, kind of blew the doors off Wisconsin and survived the first half letdown, really, going into halftime. I know Michigan was winning, but it just felt like Wisconsin had the momentum. Their student section and their crowd was dead early on, and then got into it going into halftime, and then for Michigan to come out in the second half and just punch Wisconsin in the mouth and not let up. To me, that was the most impressive part of the game that they played today, was being able to respond to that and not succumbing to like the atmosphere in the moment and everything else. But that is really what we have. Again, I'm sorry I wasn't able to do this at 3:30 or whenever the game ended. But again, I wasn't home. So what are you going to do? If you guys missed it and you came in late, you can go watch this on YouTube right after. Sports Carnage on YouTube. We'll have these videos up, and then just subscribe to them so that you get them every week, because we try to get these videos out every week for Michigan State, and the Lions. And then obviously, again, go listen to the podcast. Like I said, we just dropped one yesterday where you can see if we were right or not about how the Michigan game went. And you still have time to listen before the Michigan State game starts, so you can see if we are right or not about that game as well. Like I said, that description's in there. If you're watching on YouTube after, the descriptions are in the links, are in the descriptions below, is what I mean to say. The links are in all the descriptions everywhere. If you're on Facebook, they're right here. If you're on YouTube, they're in the description below after, and that's to all of our social media pages: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and the podcast links. Again, Spotify, Podbean, and Apple Podcasts. Sports Carnage Podcast, you guys can find that. And I will see you again probably after the Michigan State game, which should end starts at 7:30, should end probably about 11 o'clock. So I will see you guys then. Thank you so much for tuning in.